this is live. Okay, here we go. Yeah, all right, guys, let's get it going. No, I can do better than that. Hold on. Because see, what I'm going to do is when this goes on YouTube eventually, I'm going to edit this out, right? So I want it to be like pretty good. So you know, without further ado, man, let's hit it. It could have been, I think it could have been worse, right? I think it could have been worse. Hopefully you guys are there. Hopefully everything is streaming just fine. Let me check Discord as well. Hey, there's Seymour. What's going on, buddy?
Crazy.
Oh my goodness. Let's see if I can get you cranked up some and turn this down a little bit. Does everything look okay on the stream?
Yeah, for me at least.
Okay, that's good then. I don't know, man. I had like some real bad lag spikes over here. My whole system was like slowing down real bad. So I don't know if like right before the show started, if that became it was still an issue or not. Here, I'm gonna fade this out so we can hear you. You're a little quiet on my end. I don't know if you can.
Am I better now?
There you go. That's better. Yeah, definitely, man. So it's been a while, man. So what's going on? What am I supposed to call you now? I'm like, yeah, it's the letter formerly known as Seymour.
Yeah.
G.
I'm not. I haven't even. I have my next character lined up and whatnot, but I haven't revealed the name of it yet. I guess so.
That's fair.
Seymour still for now, because it's the character I had for solid 4, maybe like 5 months. I don't know. Might have been
There
longer
you
than
go.
that. I can't remember.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, if anybody hasn't known, yeah, Seymour is left the building. Was there any particular reason, or I mean, were you just because it's been so long, or?
I don't know. I kind of went in there and I'm doing certain things with my group that I don't think would also fit my character as well, and I think it's not a bad way to end it, honestly. I was hoping that a certain Kate was there when I got there, but no one was, so I was like going in there expecting to die, and like either way it was kind of interesting, so I just
Right on.
took it, and then I'm just gonna move on from there.
That's awesome. I like it. I like it a lot of times when sometimes it just feels right. You know, there's just a moment where everything just kind of comes together and you're just like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
You know, that's
I
kind of what it
liked
was.
it. It was. I don't think they really expected me to do anything there with it, so I kind of like that. I've had another person in my group a while ago who permed off of something very like inconsequential. You know, it was just like he got held up and then he got shot and then he died. Like there was a bit more story behind this one, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like some anything super crazy or whatever. You know, it was just like, oh, you get what you get. You know.
Yeah.
My character
Exactly.
was kind of an idiot in that
Yeah.
regard.
Well, it's kind of
And
yeah, it's kind of how Seymour lived anyway. I mean, his belief system is you get what you get, right?
yeah, I get.
I mean, so you know. No, I think that's great. It just goes to show. I mean, there are a lot of times when something like that can happen. Nobody was really expecting anything significant, you know, but the next thing you know, something major happens. This happens all the time, by the way. You know, it's not everybody hears about it. You know, like a character might die, and I mean, you know, and you just expect, oh well, they'll be back or whatever, and then the player decides, now that's it. Sometimes it could be a surprise, and sometimes it could be planned out. You know, it's just really up to the player. And you know, it's kind of one of those things where it's like you never know. I mean, it's like you know, when I was playing with Toronto the last time I played with him, I really had no idea that was going to be the last time, you know, our characters were going to meet. But I kind of thought, you know, it's possible, and I even mentioned it, you know, at the time, but I didn't really know for sure, you know. And so when he actually died, it was like, oh, it's like, man, I actually felt some loss there, you know, because it was unexpected and all that. And that's part of the yeah. Go ahead.
To me, like, I don't. I don't take it crazy hardcore like cult levels where if you're in any RP situation and you die, you get permit or whatever. But like, I'd consider it more just because it's like, um, I don't know. To me, sometimes it's just awkward to like, get shot by like four guys and like, someone with like an AK with a drum mag in it and whatever, and then you just come back a couple days later and you're like, how's it going, guys? That's like
Yeah,
awkward to me.
yeah,
Um, so usually, uh, that was the second time I'd ever like really kind of. Oh, my character itself had only ever been held up once and like shot, and that was courtesy of Zerka. But I didn't even like get tied up or anything there. But yeah, I was just kind of getting bored of playing that character as well. I wanted to do something a bit different.
that's cool. Yeah, see that whole oh, I woke up on the coast thing after getting riddled with bullets thing is what it kind of threw me too. I mean, that's what kind of prompted my character's uh way of looking his perspective on the world, and how things work, and that we're in purgatory and all that. It's really what inspired all of that, because I wanted something that at least made sense to my character, because it was kind of like, people were taking it for granted, anytime I ran into anybody. And
Yeah,
it's like, oh, we'll just wake up on the coast or whatever, oh, I got knocked out, and it's like, come on, man. And it's funny because that feeds right into, of course, one of the topics for today that we were going to discuss, which is the value of our character's life, right?
hmm
And it is hard. It's hard to add weight to an in-game death, right? If you just respawn, and you just have like another life, and it's no big deal. I mean, aside
yeah,
from the run back, and hopefully not having to starve, and hopefully be able to make it, in the first try, whatever it is that comes after the respawn, there's still, you're still able to play the same character, and all of that. Um, it's interesting to me that you mentioned, like how, it's like, well, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to get riddled full of bullets and then you're just back, a couple days later. Um, but again, it's like everybody handles, this sort of thing differently. I kind of wish that there were more concrete ways of us giving more value to our characters. Like when it dies, when we die, it matters more, but maybe,
yeah,
but without permadeathing the character, and that sort of thing. But I don't know. The whole thing is tricky because you don't want to inconvenience. I don't want to be inconvenienced as a player, right? I want to be able to die and play, and not have to worry about it. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, it's like when you die like 40 times, and it allows people to go around and act pretty much however they want all the time without any consequence, any real consequence. Um, it makes situations like faction versus faction wars kind of pointless unless you add a story element to it.
yeah.
Um, and that sort of thing. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I don't know what do you have any thoughts on that? Like what we could do maybe? Um,
I mean, I don't. Obviously, perming is up to the person themselves on whether or not they want to go through with it. Like, um, sometimes, I mean, how at least how I would look at it is, and value of life stuff is like perma wise. Does it one? Do you want to do it? And two, does it just like make sense?
excuse me.
Um, Usually, if you're not gonna do anything different, like one of the reasons that I did it was because I want to do something different in my group, and like Seymour's character doesn't make sense for him to do those kind of things. Um, if you're just gonna join the same group and be the same person, basically, like why would you perma?
Mm-hmm.
To That's like kind of my thing. If you're gonna make a new character, like you gotta make it different, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But
I mean, because you also don't want people to be like, "Oh, it's the same guy," and confuse you all the time.
think the best way to like you can add value to a character's life might be more of an information side. I think the less you see of like, I don't want to, I'm not saying anyone specifically, but the like, if you make a a new character after you perma your last one, and then like they read your journal somehow. They somehow
Hey,
got
thank
your
you, man.
journal and they know everything from your last character again. It's like make that make yourself lose that information because that will add more life to maybe next characters and whatnot and people themselves. Like if you know things that no one else will be able to know, if your character dies, then like that's that for other people as well, they might be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't just shoot this person. I mean, it depends on the
Yeah.
situation.
Well, see,
um
but then you're talking about having still a permanent effect or an effect, or a more profound effect on your character themselves. Because I've considered, like, remember with the purgatory thing that I was working with, I had the idea that every time you died, you came back a little less a person, or what have you. And to me, it was like, in a way, it was an excuse to where when bad things would happen to me, continually happen to me or whatnot, it would give me an excuse to come back and act poorly in response, just as a figure of speech. So to me it was kind of like I was being penalized. But then I realized, well, I just fall and die, or just some random person snipes me while I'm picking vegetables. You know what I mean? It's like, do I really want that kind of randomness to have such a significant impact on the story of my character? And so then it's kind of like I dialed that back a little bit, because I was going in that direction with the story. But then I decided, well, I mean, it's like, I want to, it's my story, and I want to tell it. The world and whatnot influences it, but I want that to be more of a story influence as opposed to just some random act, that happened.
yeah.
Um, so it's really almost like permaing in a way, because of course, it's in the name, it's permanent, or it's supposed to be anyway. But it's like, so I don't know, it's still, to me, it's like I don't want my character to die, because for one, like I said, it's going to be probably a couple of hours, it's going to be disruptive, it's to what I'm doing, unless it's a part of the role play. I'm thinking just random KOS or whatever. But still, it's like, there's the personal drawbacks to it, to me as a player, and having to be taken out and having to go fix everything. But at the same time, um it would be, I guess it's just up to the player, really. You're gonna have to just come up with your own reason for wanting to live. um
Yeah, for sure. Like I think I don't I don't think it's a bad thing to maybe at least in-game pressure, like set up situations that you try to perma someone, maybe, like if you're being all theatrical about it or something and they don't, at the end of the day, it's like, it's not a big problem. Sometimes there's crossover between value of life and just continuing a story or something. Um, and I don't know if there's really a whole lot you can do that's not, you're just gonna have to figure out in the moment, like when something happens for adding value to your character, his life at least. I don't know. Maybe could define a bit better, but uh, I feel like that's mainly up to the player. Um, like if you were forced to perma every time you died, then maybe people would be willing to cooperate in certain situations more, or think things through more instead of doing one thing or the other. But if someone thinks like, well, I mean, I don't have to kill my character off. I'm not saying that that should be a rule or anything, but if you were forced to kill your character off every time you died in like an RP situation or something, then um, I could probably see something changing there. But otherwise, it's mostly on the person.
Absolutely. um it's, I don't know, it's such a touchy thing. It's amazing how, but say some people don't even want to give up their characters ever, and others, are telling a story and progressing through it. And there's just all these different variables that come into play. I like some of these comments, like in chat, they're saying the value of life is massively important on the immersion of a character, which I agree. Again, if you're playing it from a role-playing standpoint and you're, telling it, as a story, even in a situation where I have an out and I can explain, like, oh yeah, my character actually dies and he comes back, It's like even having that mindset, it's still, he doesn't put himself in the situation. He'll still run from a fight if he feels like he needs to, or strategically fall back, whatever. And he'll take one on the chin, whatever it is that progresses the story, he ends up doing, but it's still, it can be rough. But yeah, let's see what you possibly role play it as a serious injury, have them stitch up, not being able to travel, walking wounded, as it were. Yeah, that's a good point. I liked the situation not long ago where I guess Kurt had been shot by some folks, Torchwood, and it was funny because I don't know how is. I've heard the story behind the scenes, but I don't really want to speak much to it. But from my perspective and the way I saw it, he got shot, and you think, oh man, well, this guy's dead, and then it's like a few days later or a week later, there's another video that comes out where he was actually saved, so that was a real creative way that I thought I thought it was creative to get around permadeathing a character when you weren't ready or didn't want to, things like that. But again, even then, people who will, it's like people pay lip service to this stuff. I like the ones where I make fun of it, in the Reverend's Life After speech, but but I like or people will be like, oh, I got drunk and I just passed out and woke up on the coast in just my jeans and t-shirt, It's like some of the excuses are real creative, and some of them are just kind of funny. It's like, oh well.
Yeah, like the only time I ever got properly knocked out and like tied up, and died after, it was very early on in my character, so he lost his eye from that.
Oh, nice.
Because I didn't want to. I was like, well, I don't want to just kill the character off already.
Yeah.
I always said, I don't have to, but I wanted to make it more interesting, just so it wasn't like oh, you shot me, like, but nothing happened, just lost my stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and Deathbringer brings up another point. He's like, anybody can play however they want. They just approach it, he approaches it with his own code of ethics. This goes back to why KOS can be considered roleplay, in fact. Although I do want to stress, I'm going to point it out again, because some people phrase it oddly in Discord sometimes, but we don't actually encourage KOS. KOS is allowed here. We encourage roleplay. But you're allowed to KOS. There's a difference. You know what I mean? It's not, we don't want people to be out there running around KOSing each other. We want the threat to be there, and we don't mind when people do it. Like, we get over it. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, but it's like that, because it's like somebody might be running around just KOSing people, right? Well, in my mind, as a role player, I have to, if I want to be at any peace with this whatsoever, I have to find a way to incorporate it, into my game. So I assume that they're role playing, even whether they probably aren't, but I still assume that they are. And that's what I think Deathbringer is kind of talking about. It's you got to approach it with your own code of ethics. Like, I wouldn't run around and just randomly shoot people because I'm bada boomer and I like to first person shoot people, So I just assume that other people don't. And the side effect of that is I usually feel pretty okay about it. You know what I mean? It's harder for me to hold a grudge or to be angry about something, that kind of falls in line with my way of thinking. Excuse me. Good grief. Having too much go juice, man. Getting a backfire. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, like, personally, if I was gonna go in and blow up something, I'd partially consider, like, perming to it if it made sense, but otherwise if you're gonna do that kind of stuff and you want to keep the same character, it's best to just not, like, say who you are or anything. It's best to just go in as just some unidentified person, personally at least. But I know, like you said, you can play any way you want, and some people just choose to do it a certain way.
Yeah. See, I think maybe if I was to allow a random event to create like a permanent change in my character, I would at least want to make sure that it was a community member, who did it, as opposed to just some random DayZ player who hopped in the server. Which I think is sometimes what, a lot of times what happens, really, depending on where you are in the game. I think most of the time I get killed, it's usually by some random person who's just playing DayZ on the Doug server as opposed to playing Doug. So, oh, go ahead.
That, to me, that's like, I don't even really care too much. Like, if someone went through the trouble and they don't have to be like a, even whitelist or anything. If they are making an effort and they are doing a good job at it, you know, um, like a hold up or something or whatever, and I make the wrong move or say the wrong thing, and I die because of it. I kind of actually like when people would perma their characters to stuff like that, because as a whole, obviously you don't have to, but to me as a whole, that makes um, the world seem a bit more dangerous in reality. That it doesn't matter like who it is, someone could come along, you say the wrong thing, and you're gone, and that's it for your person. So
yeah, well, see, that goes back to just
really
like allowing random deaths to kill you. I don't know, I guess because it's just the game aspect of it, because you're right,
yeah,
it's realistic. I mean, you could be out going, going to McDonald's enjoying your Happy Meal tonight, and some dude could just walk in and start shooting the place up. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, things like that happen, and you don't get to spawn back on the coast, when you die in real life. So I mean, it's
most people are not gonna perma off of like a KOS. Like that's very rare that would usually happen.
Well, most people aren't going to get shot eating their Happy Meal at a McDonald's either. So
yeah, but I mean, there's been some interesting ones, Squirrely J, who used to do like a radio show, permit his character to wolves in like the forest,
See, that's kind of cool.
But yeah, I don't think you'll find most people that are just gonna perma off getting shot out of nowhere.
Well, let's also keep in mind that death isn't the only way to technically perma your character, because I know it's permadeath, but there are a lot of ways that you could end up not playing. I mean, what if your character simply moved? They're simply left. You know what I mean? It's like, I leave South Zagoria. Well, next thing you know, you're not in Shinaris anymore. So, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah, for sure. Some people do like like my character's out in the woods kind of thing. And, they don't even have to leave. They're just not going to be, they've lost all contact with everyone else. And you can't find them. And they're just kind of sitting out in the West Woods or something.
Yeah. And it's cool. Again, it's like whatever you're comfortable with. I encourage people to get behind story, 100% of the time. So for me, anybody who, again, like you were saying, anybody who puts forth the effort, is worthy of attention and, making an impact on the server and the other characters that know them. And I agree with that too, by the way. I guess it's just that, because I have, now, in fact, I didn't have an ending in mind at first when I first started doing my character. Now, after 7 months of playing him, he's kind of, I see the trajectory that his story is going, and I could tell that I could tell a complete story, with a beginning, middle, and end if I see it through till the end. And that's probably what I'm going to do. But again, that's just my preference, I have an alternate character, Boomer, who is intended to be comic relief for me and just something to do, that's a little different. But playing him, I mean, there's no telling what I end up doing with him or any subsequent character for that matter. This is the way I feel about this specific character is just the character that I'm playing now, I could play throwaway characters. I mean, I've even teased the idea of next wipe just playing a character and then whatever the character, random appearance, whatever they look like, that's my character, and then going with it until they die. I do. I think that'll be fun. I'm gonna try it. I really am. It's gonna be fun. Excuse me. But yeah, I also think that the value, having value in your character's life, in it prompting your character to act like there's a value in their life, also enhances the role play opportunities for everyone else around them. So it's not really, it benefits the player to have value for their character's life, but it also benefits everyone else. For instance, if you're out there and somebody comes up to you and puts a gun in your face, you know, put your hands up. Okay, if you have no value in your character's life, you know, you might think, oh, I'll just pull my gun and shoot, you know, whatever. And usually that doesn't work out in your favor. Sometimes, but not usually. And it's just like in real life. I mean, it's like if even if you're carrying a gun, if somebody walks up to you and they have to jump on you and they're already aiming down on you, you know, like trying the quick draw is like really the stupidest thing you could do. So it's kind of, you know, it's like you have in real life, you have value for your life, you know, so you're more inclined to think things through and try to talk, you know, and work it out. And it should be the same in game, I think. I mean, people, if you have a value for your character's life, you're not going to be so quick to, you know, to pull your gun in every situation, right? So things might have more of a chance to you know, to have more meaningful interaction. So
I
to speak.
think it definitely does affect everyone else. The more you put into your character in that regard, and also the more you do with it, um, you know, and when they eventually die or whatever, like that'll be more impactful as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
to I think to everyone, no
That's
matter
true.
like how you do it or whatever, you know, the the more people feel like it's like, oh wow, that's like a more of a person almost, then it'll be more of an interesting death as well. For the character, I guess.
Well, not to mention that it's more of an interesting life too, leading up to it. I mean, because more people are interested in getting to know your character. I think that's why I met with so much success early on because I got lucky. Honestly, I mean, you know, I've been writing since I was 14, off and on, never published because you know that's just how I am. But I mean, I've created hundreds of characters, you know, and it's most of them to me feel like a dime a dozen. You know what I mean? It's just another name and personality put together, you know, combo. But for some reason, man, I struck gold with Alessandro. I mean, it just hit. It was one of those things where the stars and planets aligned, and I just poof, and he came to life. It was awesome. Uh, but you know, I mean, still, it's the idea that people recognize that, you know, and they realize that I put forth the effort into this character. I put thought into him, and I put, you know, emotion into him, and all of that. I think really helps sell the character, and it helps other people who he runs into not only to treat him like he's believable, but to, you know, actually have a meaningful interaction, you know. And I feel like that's really important, even for people who don't consider themselves to be good at acting or to be good at writing or to be good at any of this stuff. Um, is that all you really have to do is know your character, you know, and project your character in the way you play, you know, and the things you say and all of that. And people will get to know you and recognize you as an actual entity. It's really cool, to be honest
Oh
with
yeah,
you.
for sure. Like you don't have to be some crazy like mega role player who can, you know, who's super experienced and knows everything. If you just play who you are um, well enough, then like you'll be fine. And people don't really care, honestly. Like, um, I think at the end of the day, if you're putting an effort to it and it's fun, no one cares like how bad you are at doing a voice or you know talking, whatever in general, like or combat. No, like no one really cares at the end of the day. Um, for that kind of stuff as well.
I mean, it's true. I mean, everything
Yeah.
he's saying is true. It's really just it's the effort that you put into it, the fact that you're enjoying it. You know what I mean? It's just I don't know. It's people can tell when you're
Sure.
forcing things, and it just doesn't. You know, it doesn't lend to any credibility into the character, and so people are kind of like, yeah, you know, don't take it seriously as much. I think Deathbringer is like an excellent example of somebody. I've encountered two of his characters now, both incredibly engaging. And it was funny when I met the second one. I haven't played with him a lot, right? But when I met his second character that I'd met him, I recognized his voice a little, but I hadn't quite placed it yet. So it was funny because I knew it was somebody that I had met before, and I assumed it was a different character. But I was like, it was like, oh, it was in the back of my mind that I should know who this was. And it was actually, it's really, really cool. He's very, guy, I know you're in chat, man. I'm not really just trying to build you up, but he's really good at it. He, playing distinct characters, without putting, I don't know. I don't know how much thought and effort he puts into, how much thought and effort do you put into these characters, Deathbringer? But yeah, since you're here, but I mean, seriously, it's just like, it was a well-rounded experience both times. And, they were both very short encounters. Really, well, the second one was like almost 3 hours long, actually, but still, I mean, it was just, and we were just hanging out and talking and stuff. It was pretty fun. But again, it's just he treats his characters like they're real people, like they're living, breathing people, or at least I'm willing to bet that's what he has in his mind when he's playing. He's like, yeah, recognizes the voice. Yeah.
Voice changers are good as well. Like
Yeah.
no one's gonna care if you're using a voice changer. Like you're not expected to be like some opera singer that can hit low notes and do all kinds of crazy voices. Like
Mhm.
like I said earlier, no one actually cares. And honestly, people will probably appreciate it more because it'll be different.
Hey, I will tell you, the voice thing is actually pretty interesting. But as an aside, I guess some people use soundboards when they're playing, because I had a ranger come and knock on my door one day, and it was like bang, bang, bang. It was like a real door knock, and it startled me.
Oh
And it
yeah.
was awesome. I was like, dude, I've so got to look into doing that because that was rad.
Hmm.
Like, man, but yeah, voice changers would be good. I'll tell you right now, if you haven't seen my boomer, my Dreadpire boomer stuff, it's funny because I do Alessandro. I've been doing Alessandro for months, and it's a very distinctive voice. And so when I try doing anything else, invariably it ends up becoming the Reverend Alessandro. And so then I was like, oh my gosh. So then I started trying to do play Reverend Alessandro again, went back to him, and then I kept slipping into the Dread Paul at Boomer. And I was like, oh my gosh. I couldn't keep it straight. So a voice changer, actually might make it easier on a lot of ways. I'm telling you. You do voiceover. See, I should. I know I should, and I don't know why I don't. If I can make money at it, I would be in heaven. It's probably because when you're. I don't mean to make this about me. It's probably because when you're doing something for fun and for your own creativity, it's very different than trying to create something that fits someone else's ideal or image. It's hard to do. Even doing it for fun. I have people that ask me to do voiceover stuff, videos and whatnot for their characters or for Doug or whatever, and it's challenging.
Yeah, I've been my next character. I haven't fully decided on the voice stuff yet, but I'm thinking it's probably gonna be a very annoying voice, and I've just been watching like there's actually pretty good videos out there on like different kinds of voices for characters, how to make them easily, and like especially for Dungeons and Dragons and stuff.
Hmm.
Like if you need uh, a new voice for a character, because that'll help a lot for sure, you know. Uh,
For sure. Oh, I'm sure you don't, man. Actually, especially nowadays when everything is so anybody can do anything technically, so it's like the value has gone down considerably for certain things, because it's just more kids in the pool, so to speak.
yeah,
Anyway, thanks, man. All right, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna leave you guys here with the letter formerly known as Seymour. I'll be out. Give me a second. I'll be right back.
Deathbringer. I haven't watched much of your streams, but do you perma to like KOS and whatnot? Like if you just get shot, or do you is that character dead like one life stuff? Yeah, I don't see why not. DNB soldier. Okay, so if they've had any like interaction. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering, if you were just like traveling through the woods and You Are Dead pops up, like if you go through and just make a whole new character or whatever. Oh yeah, for sure. That's the good thing about Doug is you can play whatever way you want. I don't know if I could ever go that hardcore, but
Where did all the viewers go? No, I'm just kidding. Hi, everybody. How's everything going? Seymour being entertaining.
Nope, I'm very boring and not entertaining anyone.
Well, in that case, there's something else that we brought you here to talk to us about today. And that, my friends, goes hand in hand a bit with the value of our character's life, and sometimes becomes the value of our character's life for some weird reason. And that, my friends, is a phenomenon known as gear fear. That's right. Because in a game where you spend hours, weeks, maybe even months trying to acquire the perfect set of gear, the perfect earmuffs and cat thing, whatever it is that floats your boat, it could take you forever to find it. You finally get it and you run around and you're prancing around and look at me and boom, you are dead. And then it's gone. And you're like, ah! And you just want to, smash it, flip the table and everything else. No, you can't be like that. I know you've been wanting to talk about this for a long time.
Yeah, I don't. It's definitely, I think, more of a new player thing. I don't know. I wouldn't actually say that because there's plenty of people who still have that kind of mentality about it. But um, I think if you want to get rid of it, you could start there. Um, the best way is to just realize that like it doesn't matter, dude. Especially now, like the, if they with the changes in like 1.12 especially.
Mm-hmm.
Like a BK18 could like one tap someone to the chest if you're close enough, dude. Like it's not it's not gonna matter too much whether or not you have a foul. I walked into Gorka the other day with a foul and an AK in my bag. Like I don't you know, you don't after a certain point it doesn't really matter, and it definitely helps I think. Like if you have the nicer things more and you just get accustomed to using them, then you're not really gonna care as much if you lose them because it's like I've used it before. Like it's nothing special really. Like I get if I think if you come here for RP and interaction, you won't have too much of a problem with it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Usually, people who play the game more for loot and whatnot are
Mm-hmm.
actually the ones with the biggest amounts of gear fear, it seems. Which is kind of ironic, you could uh, go back to like a base with 11 M4s in it or something, and it's like they're worried about losing one of them, and it's like okay, maybe I could if I give you like a Mosin, can you not? Maybe it's because if you give them other guns that they can't use it or something. But I don't know. Personally, it's just my opinion. If you come to Doug and play for loot, like I don't know why, like you're here personally, because it's not a server that you're gonna, I don't think, enjoy very much. Even if you're like, uh, you know, even if you like the fact that it's harder to get it, maybe that's why. Obviously, you can like, I mean, dude, don't get me wrong. Like, I like having like an SVD or like a foul or something, but um, if you play specifically for it, you're probably not gonna have a play. But
Yeah, I can't agree with you more on that. I mean, and it's not only going to affect your experience because you're not going to have that loot rich experience that you want, but it's going to ruin the experiences of everyone around you because eventually you're just going to be like, well, I'm just going to kill, 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 and guess what? Find that the people you're killing don't have a lot of that stuff either, and it's just kind of a bummer for everybody. But there's another end to that spectrum though, because I deal with gear fear quite a bit, and
mhm,
I'm not a big PvPer, and it's very rare that I have a decent gun, at all. So, and usually it's something someone's given to me, and
yeah,
so, there's that. But I would love, for instance, if my character, who was a reverend, could just walk around in the outfit that I want him to, just to be in, so that he's recognizable and that sort of thing, and always have, a Bible with him, so I can have a role play prop and that sort of thing. I would love for that to always be the case, but it's not, because if I walk around anywhere I want, any one of those random instances that we've already discussed, will take that away from me. And especially a Bible, for instance. Bibles are like really hard to come by, for me. I had 5 at one time. In one raid, eliminated 3 of them. So it was like, it's hard for me, and it's just a Bible. I mean, it's not like I can shoot you with it or beat you with it or anything else. It's a role play prop, but
true.
that's what makes it important to me, and that's also what makes them special to me, is like how rare they are. Because if I had, like 10 of them at any given time, then it wouldn't really be that big of a deal. I'd be handing them out everywhere. So that's part of what gives it value to me as well. But then I've got to struggle with the idea of, well, look, man, it's like I want my character to go out on missionary work. Do I take the Bible or not?
Mhm.
And then I kind of weigh my chances of surviving or not. And it doesn't even have to be, I mean, because I kind of feel that way, depending on, like, say what other clothing I have, or what even handguns. We can do that because my character carries handguns. But most people, handguns are throwaway weapons for the most part.
Yeah.
You have it until you get something better. It's part of my character's PID. I mean, he's not really a rifle guy. You know what I mean? So from the role playing standpoint, the gear fear is real as well. It's just, probably for something, for different things that we value.
Um, I think someone said that there's, gear is replaceable, but life isn't. And obviously, depending on how you play your character, um, that may be a bit different. But like, I think if you go into a situation and you're worried about losing your gear or whatever, so it really annoys me when you hold someone up and you get to them and then they're just like,
Well,
man,
yeah.
just kill me already, dude. Come on. Like, just take my stuff and get it over with. Like that. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, don't worry about it. Like I said, I think the best realization you can come to for gear and letting it get in the way of interaction is like, you can do everything you need. I mean, if you're good enough, at least you have to like actually be able to shoot straight if you want to, you know, use um, like AKs and Mosins and stuff. But my point is, you can do everything you need with a Mosin, or you can do everything you need with like a double barrel, right? There's like an easy progression. I could
Hmm.
find, I may lose a foul or something, but at the same time, I could find some idiot running around with a foul and just catch him off guard and then get it. It's like you know, it's not a big deal. Um, I don't think I think obviously more experienced players won't have too much of a problem with it because they'll realize, but it's, most of the time it's going to be newer people coming in, just like not maybe they're different. like they have different experiences on other servers where it's not hardcore. So maybe they value their gear more now. Um, but even then, it's like I don't. Some people made the argument that hardcore is actually worse for RP, which I can see. I mean, but that's still a fault of the player valuing gear over, you know, their life. Because at the end of the day, gear will just spawn and all over the map and whatnot. You know, I mean, yeah,
This
you
is
can
true,
respawn or
definitely.
whatever, but um, like it's not that big of a deal. But for sure, like I can see making the argument for that hardcore and actually hurts RP, but I
Hmm.
mean, I would still say that's pretty easy to kind of disprove at least.
Well, yeah, I kind of think all of that's just it's just excuses. I mean, really, because honestly, hardcore actually can enhance roleplay. I would expect. I mean, it really it does. It comes entirely down to the player and how they're going to act. Is all it comes down to. Because I mean, the server being hardcore is part of what brought me to it in the first place, and then of course the RP was the other aspect of it. Those two things combined are what give to the most realistic experience that we can expect. Because if I end up in an apocalyptic situation, I expect all the things that we encounter, except for the watching up on the coast part. I mean, but I
Yeah,
expect all that stuff to happen. You know what I mean? So I expect there to be moments of starvation. I expect there to be moments of freezing to death, moments of having to fight off people over a can of beans. I mean, it's like all of this stuff kind of makes sense to me. And it's just like because I get frustrated just like other people. You spend months building something up and it takes somebody an hour to knock it down. I mean, literally. I mean, that's the disproportionate way this game is designed. And it's also true of real life too, man. I mean, it could take me a month to build a wall and it could take somebody 20 minutes to knock it down. I mean, it's just ram a truck into whatever. That's just the way it works. But it's still when you're playing a game is where the line is. And it's like, gosh, it's like I want all of this effort to amount to something. I've been enjoying all of this build up. I want it to hit fruition somewhere. And usually, and a lot of times, I won't say usually, but a lot of times, you end up really disappointed. And it's like, well, crap, why do I want to even keep playing? And to me, those are the kinds of moments that I try to avoid. You know what I mean? When it comes to my thought process. But not everybody can separate themselves, and I don't even do it successfully all the time either, don't get me wrong. But a lot of people don't separate themselves. They're always just like this. And I think that those people are really going to have a hard time, not just in this game but in life in general, because you've got to be able to take in the whole experience. you know
yeah. I think
Oh my
it's
goodness.
a good balance of things as well. Also going back to general value of life stuff, because this is just what I think. But I think also at the same time, in my opinion, but um if everyone was super worried about like value of life, like maybe it was more of a forced RP server. I just think that would get so boring because yeah, you wouldn't have any like variance in people. I think because you'd have people that either um like you just have crazy people that are just crazy and they're just killing people, and you'd have just normal people, right? But I feel
Hmm.
like you can have more of a a difference. It's not just like black and white. It's not just like this person um, doesn't have value for their life because they're a crazy person and this one does. If everyone was super like Care Bear cuddly towards each other, I think it would just get really boring, honestly. Um,
It would.
personally, and you know, like I said, maybe you have a character that like is um, they value their life, but maybe they mess up and like they do something stupid and they get like their friend killed or they kill someone else and like they there's like I said, I just think it would make things too black and white to me at least,
Hmm.
and it would get very boring. And there that even goes into KOS's and whatnot because without that looming threat of just getting shot, then it would get really boring as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, I mean, it's all balance because again, if all you're experiencing is KOS, that gets very boring very quickly as well. Or it's just like the people who struggle to figure out how to survive on the coast. If you can never figure out the key to survival on Doug, it's going to get boring pretty quickly. And
Yeah, and
I mean, sorry,
like I
but
said,
you got to
some
figure it out.
yeah, no, and then
Mm.
there are like you need a moment. If everyone was like, oh, they're just so worried about like their value for their life or whatever. If you're taking the other side, it's like you might not get as many crazy moments of just people doing something really dumb where they shouldn't do it, and maybe it works out. Like maybe they they get held up or something, or they take an uneven fight, and it works out for them. If everyone was so worried at the same time about what was going on, then you might not get as many interesting stories as well. You know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, KOS all the time would be vanilla server. Something else that just came up, and this is a valid question, guys. He asks, what about a mainly RP or designated KOS zones? And again, doing that, I mean, you might as well just take the KOS out altogether if
Yeah,
that's the case,
yeah,
because again, it creates relatively safe zones. And I mean, it's like again, I mean, I'm not a combative character. My character's not a combative character, but I agree. I mean, I would be completely bored if there was no looming threat. I mean, it's bad enough, right? That you got infected who could come around and aggro everybody and come and get you and whatnot. Okay, that's a problem. And then you got starvation, you got all this other stuff. But then you got other players, the other people. And the other people, there needs to be some mystery and some suspense as to what you're going to get when you encounter them. See, I guess my problem is just when you're just doing whatever you're doing and then all of a sudden you are dead. Boom. And that's just it. There's nothing. You get nothing from that. There's no interaction. You don't even know how it happened. Um it's just that's it. And that's how life works actually. But still it as a player, it's like god, there needs to be something more. And there's just not. And that's just the way the game is.
Well, to
Um
me, if you want to be like an optimist and look at
yeah.
those situations, you could look at like, what could I have done better there? Like, was I just walking through a random field and got shot? Because then, if you were, then that's on you because you're walking through a random field and then you
Yeah.
get shot. Like,
Well, I mean,
you
what
don't
if
you
you're
don't have
like
to look at it that way,
what
but
if you're like for instance, this happened to me the other day. Literally, I was out picking up vegetables. I crouched. I was, double clicking vegetables, and all of a sudden I was just dead. To me, there wasn't really anything I could do, except for maybe just have a completely different location. But if that's the case, then I'm never gonna, I'll never be happy anywhere.
oh well,
Because
yeah, you can't
but
always.
it was
Sometimes it's
ridiculous.
just
I was like, God, man. And then they found out where the guy was, and I was like, well, that makes sense. And so now every time, now here's the funny part: every time I play now, I'm actually looking in that direction, or I'm trying to, it's funny. I'm more cautious now
well, and
about
that's the
about that potential threat because now I know it
yeah.
exists.
If
Yeah,
you want to look at it like that,
yeah,
to me that's what I would do. Is like,
yeah,
okay, so I was just farming my business and I got shot out here. Like maybe next time I'll look around more, search the town again real quick to make sure no one's around, and then I'll go do it.
yeah,
Obviously you can't avoid that. Just getting sniped randomly sometimes, but I think it's a good thing to just um, to take what happened and improve upon it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, it comes down to the player and what kind of attitude you want to bring to the table. And and I do, man, don't get me wrong, I get frustrated. I've talked to you about it, but I mean, I get frustrated, especially by situations like I just described, because what I'm thinking too is, if I decide to let it bring me down, right? What am I going to think? I'm going to be like, man, why did this guy, like, what does he get out of that? It's not even a challenge. I'm just literally standing there. Like, why bother? And just the whole thing. And then you just let it eat at you and eat at you. And then the next thing you know, it's degrading your attitude and it's making you bitter and resentful. And it's just not worth it, guys, because guess what? That's not why you're playing this game, right? You're not playing a game to be bitter and resentful and to be angry, right? That's not the point. If it is, maybe you should take up boxing or something. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's just not going to work out for you. You're going to be miserable for a long time if that's what you're doing. But the point is like, I mean, I just want you to understand. I mean, I'm like everybody else, things get to me, but I do try. Once I realize that it's happening, I do try to take control of it, of how I'm thinking, and kind of redirect my thoughts into a whole, to where, because I just don't want to be that way, man. I want to enjoy my time here. I mean, that's why I'm here. So, and hopefully, and if it helps anybody else realize, hey, man, maybe I ought to think about this a little differently. It might not be so bad then. But I did consider surrounding my entire area with watchtowers. But then I was like, man, by the time I probably wouldn't even finish it before the next wipe. But then it just kind of defeats the purpose of the area anyway, so.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second.
Mm-hmm. Never understood OOC drama. Back in the day, there were some people that didn't respect anyone's RP and attack friendly camps and post about it. We got some pretty good kills. It was annoying, but whatever. They eventually, yeah, I bet they did. They got banned for cheats. No, that's the kind of thing I don't really think should be appropriate in Discord anyway, like trash talking and certain, because you know what, you never know how somebody's going to take a situation like that. It's actually kind of amusing, because there are times when, like, there could be a situation in game and then somebody go and post about it, like, in the Discord, and you're like, well, jerk, now I know who did it, but fortunately, if you're doing it to me, I separate NC and OOC anyway. So even if I don't like you out of character, I can still role play with you. And if I don't like if my character doesn't like your character, we can still be friends out of character. But that's just me, man. I mean, it's not just me, but it's that's the ideal that we want to have around here. But not everybody looks at it that way. Oh, long before Discord was a thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, when there was TeamSpeak, that's not that much different. TeamSpeak and text messaging. I know it wasn't as far back as pager code messaging, because we didn't do internet much back then. It's true. Some people, I agree, man. Some people really struggle separating their roleplay character and their real life. I mean, and a lot of people, I think we might end up in an open topic soon anyway, but a lot of people, I encourage this too. If you're new to roleplay, they'll base their character on their real life. And I found that a lot of people, it's not, I'm not going to say that one does it more than the other, because there are different reasons I believe that everybody kind of does, or that a lot of people tend to do this, but they do. I mean, if you're playing your real life in a fictional setting, it's a lot easier to become emotionally attached to your character, whether you realize it or not, or the things that are going on in their lives. But at the same time, for like, say, someone like me, who, I mean, my character is kind of vaguely like me, but not really. It's mostly fictional, but I've put so much thought and effort into it and watched him develop into his own character with his own personality and all this over this time, that, I have a fondness for my character too. It's like, it's easy for me. Like, there are times, just because I'm a seasoned role player, right, where I've literally walked my character into danger, knowing he was going to die, knowing that it was not the smartest thing to do, but in character, it made sense for him to take those decisions. We've talked about that on the show before. I've done that, and it didn't end well, and I'm like, oh well, after, because I did what I had to do, for the integrity of the character and the in character and out of character relationship. It's hard. It can be hard to do.
I think most of people's issues with in character and out of characters, and I'm not saying I haven't done it before either, complained about things. Everyone does pretty much, but like, most of it's really that they will probably wanted it to go a certain way, and if it doesn't go a certain way, then they're gonna get mad about it. And that's why, like, I would say some of it is probably people, I'd say most of, like, people bleeding in character stuff out of character isn't about gear or anything like that. Most of it's just, like, it didn't go the way exactly that they wanted it to, and, they felt that they were like wronged by it or something. Who knows? You know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people are have issues with separating and drama and whatnot. I think personally you have to just accept that like whatever your playstyle is, however you play the game, like you can't really play the game the way you want to. You play the game as, like DayZ wants you to play. Like
Yeah,
if
for real.
if you want to be a humble farmer who just sits up in some secluded corner, someday someone's gonna come along and just shoot you. Like you can't get mad over the way something goes really, unless it's like an obvious problem. If someone's like does something dumb in an interaction because they like metagame you, then that's different. But like,
Yeah, as long as they're not cheating. That's the idea. But yeah, I agree with all of that as well. And playing a character who is not combative, right? I'm not. He's not the humble farmer. Like I really want to get out and do things right with my character, but he does spend a lot of time just chilling and talking to people and being an in-character resource for other people's stories, almost like an NPC, so to speak. Um, just one without any god protections or whatever, because he's not an actual NPC. Um, I even playing that way, you have to accept that bad things are going to happen. The instance where I was describing, where I was just farming and I got sniped out, right? Now, let me preface this with, I don't really have a lot of PID that I care about anymore because I pretty much lost most of it, right? For one reason or another. So the stuff I have now is just convenient stuff that I've found laying around, and I've got like a preaching suit or whatever for events, but that's it. So when I die now, it's kind of like the stuff is kind of like, like tier 2 or whatever. It's like not that big of a deal. But even then, that one day when I was farming, right, and I got sniped out, the gear fear crept back in a little bit. It did. And I was like, hunting jacket or pea coat? I don't really care if I lose the pea coat, so why not? So yeah, I went through all that for like a good solid day. I was like, screw it. And people are like, hey, you look like you just washed up on the coast. I'm like, no, I just want to look that way. That way, if I do end up washing up on the coast, it's not that big a deal. And it took me a solid day before I was finally like, all right, fine. I'll put the boots on. Like, all right, fine. I'll put the hat on, or whatever. Or actually, I've been wearing an enduro helmet lately. Because I was like, hey, well, that makes sense to my character. I'm a good shot. Might as well try to put something on that might protect him, although it doesn't really help too much. Are you there, Seymour?
yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
You were cutting out on me for a minute, so I didn't know if I lost you or not. Oh man, but yeah, it's funny because it does. Now I'll tell you, a couple of weeks ago, or like maybe a month ago, we had Scorpion. Scorpion was on, and Scorpion said, basically, it's like all the gear fear that I've had. He really broke through all of it with one comment, basically, which is that no matter what happens, there will eventually be another server wipe. So whatever it is that you're holding on to or clinging to or you don't want to use because you're afraid you're going to lose it, you've already lost it because there's going to be a server wipe. So you might as well enjoy it while you got it.
Exactly. Like that's what I never understood. It's like you're gonna be more upset the longer you hold on to like a piece of gear, the more upset you're gonna be when you lose it, honestly, because and it's not like, oh, I've been running around with this thing, you know, in my instance, if you're like a nomadic, you don't have a base or anything, all your guns are basically on you. Like if you're running around with, like you found a foul or a val or whatever, something rare. If you run around and do stuff with it, you're not gonna like be as mad that you lost it. But if it's just the personally at least, if it's just sitting in a crate and you take it out and you get sniped like later on in the day and you don't get to use it, then you're just gonna be more mad because it's just you're gonna regret just having it sit in like a
saving it for that special occasion.
yeah, and then it doesn't go your way, and then it doesn't go your way, and then you get mad. So it's like
right. That's a great point, which goes back to your that's the reason why you get so much OOC drama in the first place, is because things don't go the way somebody expects it to. And that's the thing, is if you always expect it to not go the way, I mean, look, I was like I said, look, man, there okay, look, we're gonna go back to a couple of things here because there's a couple of great comments here. Um Here we got base campers, or the bane of my life as a robber, surely. Like, what's the actual point of hiding in a base? Okay, I am a little guilty of this sometimes. I'm often around, anchored to a location. When I was running an aid station and that sort of thing. Right now, I'm suffering through moving. So I'm like rebuilding a separate location. So I'm spending a lot of time deconstructing and then rebuilding elsewhere. And then, and so then it's like, it's funny because this is what happened the other day when I ran into old Deathbringer there, is that I was like in my base and I had gone through and I'd organized all my crap and I was like, all right, man, I'm ready to head out. And then the next thing I know, there's somebody outside. So when I go outside, now I've got role play interaction. And so the next thing you know, for the next 2 hours, I'm still at my base, even though I'm outside interacting with people. But it's not what I had planned to do, which goes back to, but I mean, it's like, this is why I play. I mean, I'm here for the interaction and to tell stories. So I don't mind at all, by the way. Don't get me wrong in that one way at all. I don't mind. Okay, it was really good interaction, but it's just that, it's like I don't intend to sit at my base all the time. And sometimes I end up doing it just because of circumstances or people coming around or whatnot. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I read that. I'm like, I don't get it either, but sometimes I just get stuck there because, it's like, I'm in the middle of, I'm working on a project, or, it's like I run into people, or maybe I only have like an hour to play. And, if you have an hour to play, you really don't have time to go very far to do very much, or, especially if you end up coming back to base. So it's like, I just end up in the same area a lot. It bores me, man. I get bored.
I was confused for a second because he said base campers, and usually when I think of base campers, I think of people camping a base, not people sitting in a base.
Yeah. Well, he finished the thought with like, what's the
Yeah,
actual point of just hiding in a base, and that's why I knew he was talking.
yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just saying just hiding in a base, like it could open it up. Like obviously, if you sit in a base all day, and it's not like you're getting shot at and you're hiding in there, obviously that's a different story or something. But if you just sit in a base all day, then I can understand maybe why. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if you're gonna have like a big base that you just sit at a lot and do stuff, I think most people should have like a tour thing that they do where they just go out and like maybe don't death ball out. I'm not advocating for that as much, but
Yeah.
like just go out and run around every once in a while. I don't know. I don't want to come off as like basers, disgusting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I think if you're, it's like that's your playstyle though. If they want to sit and like just hang out
Just
in base or whatever, and do that, then they can do that, obviously. So you know.
Booney Brothers representing. No, I agree completely. It's weird though, because it's all just like everything else that we talk about on every episode. It's all interweaved and intertwined with each other, and it all wraps around each other and creates this beautiful tapestry that we call Doug. But it's true, because if you go out traveling around, right, and you're going to someone's base, you want someone to be there so that you can interact with them. But at the same time, it's like when people are always in their bases, they're not actually out interacting with others. It's like, there's a lot of give and take in everything that we do. Because it's true. I mean, I don't want to walk 2-3 hours just to find out that nobody's at the base that I went to go see people at.
Yeah.
But again, I don't always want to have to walk 2 or 3 hours to go find anybody. It'd be nice to run into them, 20, 30 minutes away.
See, like I take the opposite Deathbringer. I like the fact that there's literally a spot for the most part, say for the most part, but where most groups can come together, no matter who they are, and you know, just chill out and sit around. I think that's kind of cool. Like if there's a place that's so well respected to the point where like actual groups that may be at odds with each other, it's not always true, but can come and hang out, then that's cool. Like I get I mean it is annoying. Like I think for days where you have like maybe whitelist days where there's less people, right? And then like it really narrows it down. For instance, if half of people are sitting in, like a community camp or something, that like severely narrows the amount of people you go out and find. And for a good bit of groups, like them being able to just go out and find people in the wild is kind of a big factor for them, you know. So I mean, I can see where that gets annoying, but I also like I would definitely not um, want a game without dugout or anything like that. Yeah, I definitely share that kind of frustration sometimes as well. I mean, like I've been playing like almost every day, but I've just been doing other things as well. And um I've I will go out, but I just can't be bothered, or I wasn't interested in walking around the map and not seeing anyone, because I'd go around the map, not see anyone, and I was just being really lazy for the past week or two, and I was just sitting in like one spot really, because it's like, why would I bother going out if people are just gonna come up here to me, you know? But that's just mainly because I was playing not as long as I usually was.
I'll tell you, I found it interesting when you were talking, Seymour, about how it reminded me of the argument of whitelist versus non-whitelist days. When it's like certain groups crave interaction when they go out, that's why they go out, is to find that interaction. And it's weird. It's weird how there are so many different perspectives on this, because I've heard the term campfire RP thrown around a lot, which is used to refer to people that sit around base and chit chat all the time as they're playing. But you have to figure we're Doug. I mean, we're an inclusive community. We don't necessarily encourage all types of play, but we encourage people to play all types of ways. I think that's probably a good way to phrase it, actually. Um, so, we're going to have people who like to roam around. We're going to have people who like to sit around and chat. We're going to have people who like to PvP. We're going to have people who don't. I kind of wonder if maybe the problems that we experience with it, and it's not really problems. I mean, it's just a matter of whether whether there's a healthy balance of people who like to play certain ways or not on at the same time. I think that's really where where we have the issue. And I feel like it's probably because of the limited, only 75 maximum people allowed on at a time, which is just a technical limitation. I mean, it's not much we could do about it. But I think if like there was a cap of like maybe 1,000 people, for instance, or even 500, then there would probably be less issue with, because we would be able to find people at their bases. We'd be able to find people walking around because there would just be more people.
Yeah. Um. It. I mean, even then, if everyone was getting out as well, there'd be something else to complain about. Like the more people that are out interacting with each other randomly, I guarantee you the more like you just see people just shooting at each other as well, because like, oh, if everyone's out and, you know, no one had like a base or anything like that. I mean, there was most of this game has that the time standalone has been around, there hasn't been bases in the game. Like, even then, people just put up tents and make camps that way, so that's never gonna go away. But like, if
Mm-hmm.
literally everyone was just out surviving constantly, I feel like you'd actually see more people just shooting each other, and then you'd hear more complaints about KOS as well. That's the other
Yeah,
side
you
to
would.
me.
You
It's like
would.
if you just see if there's a higher chance you run into someone, then people are just gonna sit in the woods all day and just shoot people half the time. So it's like you're just gonna get people complaining that like, oh, I'm getting KOS'd more because whatever. I don't know.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, because you got to figure, the more hostile the environment is, the more it takes a certain type of person and mindset to survive it. So I mean, if you really come down to it, I mean, because remember, I mean, of course, Arma and all that, it was all designed to be straight PvP game anyway in the first place. So you know, it was geared towards that as opposed to being social. It wasn't really focused on being social. So it kind of is what it is. That's why it's like the base building stuff and all that's pretty remarkable, and the fact that it's enable people to role play more is interesting. But I agree, without it would be a totally different game. My character would probably not have survived, not as himself. He would have had to have changed. And so if that were the case, if that's the way the server played and the game played, then my character would be totally different, or I would just have a completely different character, is kind of what it comes down to. Because I don't know that my character would survive, a really hostile, constantly on the move type of, because I mean, it's his thing is putting down roots and trying to, create community is really his goal. His goals would all be totally different, if the setting,
Yeah.
if the setting were that different.
Um,
I did want to comment though real quick on Deathbringer, who says that for him it's just annoying to stream for 6 hours and literally see no one. And then to find out that half the people were just sitting in one spot. And you're right. I'm glad that you followed it up with, but that's on me, because I am the kind of character or player or streamer. Well, I'll role play by myself if I have to. And I think it's entertaining for people. People seem to enjoy it, but at the same time, that does actually wear thin on me too. I mean, by the time I'm done, and I only do 4 hours at a time, and by the time I'm done, I'm really exhausted. Like I just want to go to bed. Like it's crazy how exhausted I get from doing that. But I will. I mean, it's like whatever it takes, because I want it to be interesting, and I want people to experience DayZ and the role play, even when there's no one else to role play with. I'll role play by myself, or I'll even role play with chat. Sometimes I do that, because I'll talk to chat like, I don't know, like it's the Lord or something, if I'm playing Alessandro. It's just like whatever I can do to keep it interesting and all of that. But I never try to let not finding people be my problem. Like if I don't find people, I just do other things. But then again, my character, there are different facets to my character. I mean, he's important. It's important to him to have interaction because that furthers storylines, and it's his purpose. I mean, he's a reverend, and he needs that interaction with people. But at the same time, if I don't get the interaction, then there are other things I can do. I can build, I can loot, I can try new things. There are still things in the game that I just haven't done. I haven't hunted. I've barely fished. There are just all kinds of things that I might try to do. But then again, that's just me. I know you've been playing this game for years, and many of you have been playing this game for years. So a lot of the things that are still new and interesting to me are just like, whatever to some of you guys.
yeah, I'll probably start doing stream stuff again because I tested out a few weeks ago and it was actually pretty fun. But I just like school stuff in general, like finals and whatnot. I don't play enough really to do that. But I think for DayZ and stuff, you have to you have to realize that like not every day is gonna be very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and um, you can't always go for. I find that the more people tend to go for like content, and like they will prioritize content over actually playing the game, then it's not gonna be as fun, really. And that you have to like prep people honestly, like anyone who
Mm-hmm.
watches, if someone new comes in, just be like, yeah, like I don't know, it's DayZ. Some days are boring, some days are like insane, so that's how it goes. It's unfortunate that it's that way, but anything you could do to augment that as well, like just out of character stuff, would probably help.
That's the way, in Deathbringer. We should talk about this sometime during another show or whatever, or even just together, because the streaming thing it's really interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, some days are going to be interesting and some days aren't. And it's part of the reason why it's like, well, when I'm streaming DayZ, I always try to, if nothing else, I'll role play by myself just so that I keep it interesting. Because again, a lot of it is a running simulator. That's what Johan used to like to call it all the time. It's a running simulator, and it's true. I mean, because this is what you're doing most of the time, and it's like you finally get somewhere and there's some action or whatever, you get killed, you end up on the coast, and it's like, man, this is boring. So it's like you got to do something. But then again, I also found that it helps keep it interesting for me as well. Because if I'm entertain, doing it to entertain people, then it's, I get some enjoyment out of that as well. But but yeah, man, it gets weary, It's like because you're constantly doing the same things or so. I'll tell you right now that when I'm playing and the camera's not on, I am not talking to myself constantly. I can absolutely assure you of that. I might role play in my head, but I'm not, a little bit, but I'm not like, oh, look at all the old
Oh
nice
yeah.
day out today. Oh, it's a lovely day. I'm not doing any of
I
that, man.
I mean, I think like I said, anything you can do
Mm-hmm.
to help that along. I'm boring. Like, not every. I can't. Like, I've been doing a lot with like my group of intergroup RP, I guess, of like when we get in game and we meet up, like we just don't talk in TeamSpeak and we'll actually play as our characters and talk to group members more so as characters as well. Because to me, that comes off, when you meet someone, if you know each other's characters more, it makes things more convincing. Um, and using radios for fights and whatnot is pretty fun. But like some days you can do that kind of stuff. If it's just boring like that, I think anyone who does that will actually find that it can be pretty enjoyable. And then some days you just like I wouldn't be able to do that every day. There's no way I'd be able to do like constantly as a character because some days you're just tired and you're like I don't want to do this unless I meet someone. I'd just rather talk to you in TeamSpeak or whatever.
So Deathbringer brings up a really great point. He says it's a massive disadvantage if he ever plays with others, but Discord and TeamSpeak is a huge no-no for him. See, now I'll use TeamSpeak and Discord, okay? I personally will, but I don't like to. And it's because of that innate disadvantage that you get. Because people are going to use it. I'm pretty sure that that's the reason why, more than anything else, that these kinds of things are allowed is because you just can't stop it. And but it doesn't make any sense, and especially if you want to look at metagaming and bans and things like that, you could really make an argument that it's really hard to enforce metagaming rules when you allow TeamSpeak and Discord and all of that. But we're trying to be realistic, as a community. I'm not an admin, but as a community, we're trying to be reasonable. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that are enforceable, certain things that aren't. I mean, it's like if we were going to enforce communication rules to that extent, then we might as well just make it a full-on forced RP server, which the community doesn't want as well. So it's just kind of like again a balancing act that we try to adhere to. But like when I'm streaming, I'm never in Discord for one, because I wouldn't, there's no way to really warn anybody in any of that. If you're playing with me and I run into you in character, you just kind of got to assume that's the risk anyway. I mean, it just is what it is. Because you never know if anybody's streaming or whatever. You just kind of got to assume that, it's out there. Just
Oh
like in
yeah.
real life, but
Uh,
yeah, go ahead.
I if we're pushing it into open topic stuff, we
Yeah,
might
yeah,
as
yeah.
well like
Might as well.
um, TeamSpeak and for VoIP or whatever you can talk about more. Like um, Zerka said that RP isn't forced, and that's one of the reasons that TS is allowed. And like I said, if they took away Discord and TeamSpeak, like I also at the end of the day, it's still a video game. Like sometimes you just want to hang out and talk with people, and you don't want to have to do crazy like RP stuff 24/7. Um, and I think you'd do probably lose a lot of people, and it's not like those
Yeah.
people. That's not an issue. That's like you're gonna lose like some fringe people who are just like mega RPers or whatever, or not mega RP, like people who just come here and they don't like RP or anything. It's not like you're gonna lose those people. You're gonna lose a lot of people who just come to play with friends, and that doesn't mean that they don't RP. That just means that like that's part of the community thing. Is they just want to hang out with people and talk and play the game. Um,
Yeah.
and um, now other things like alliance chats, I despise. I think they're super lame and are should be phased out, but they will never go away, unfortunately. Like I just hate them so much. It's really annoying. To me personally, to like if you're getting raided or attacked, for instance, and then all of a sudden, um, unless you contacted them in game somehow, like that's I just like deal with your own things on your own. Like accept consequences. If you're getting raided, like you're gonna have to deal with that. There's obviously difference. Like if you're a group like let's say Vigil when they lived in Boar, right? If they're getting raided and attacked, there's a bunch of gunshots going off. Like 506 can come over because they're literally in earshot. But like if one group is far enough away and then they just ping all their friends in an alliance chat that they're being raided when they conceived like they couldn't know that obviously, I think that's really lame to me. But
Yeah. Well, I think
yeah,
it's been handled pretty well lately in my immediate circle. I don't want to give up too much information, but I mean, my character has like 4 different radios for one. He has radio communication and is practically in range. I think he has actually might be in range of allies that I would call. The thing of it is that I would only specifically um talk to the people that I could actually reach. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't call anybody across the map. I wouldn't call anybody at home on my phone. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't go to those extremes to try to get help. But people do. And that's one of the things that kind of bothered me, especially if you consider metagaming and all of that is it makes sense, okay, in the context of say you're being raided, right? Your character doesn't vanish. Your character doesn't just cease to exist. You know, usually people role play, oh, you're asleep at home. If somebody's raiding your house and you're asleep in the house, you're going to wake up. You know what I mean? It just kind of makes sense. So if somebody was to call you and you log in and you're there, then that's fine to me. You know, it's reasonable. At least there's an in character way that makes sense. But if you're like clear across the map and you come running over, oh, I heard there was trouble. I mean, that's just kind of nonsense. You know, even if you are in the same group and it is your place, but you just weren't there. I mean, I had one instance where I logged in and I got "you are dead," boom, like right away. I was like, what the hell? And somebody was raiding my base and I logged into the middle of it, never even got to see what was going on. And I was like, well, I guess that makes sense because my character was asleep at home and the guy came in and, disturbed me. I woke up to being home invaded. You know what I mean? It's like, it makes sense. And fortunately, somebody heard the shot, because, whatever. And there was some retaliation. But, I mean, it's like, I don't know. And I guess it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. Like we said, Deathbringer here is way not into any of that kind of stuff and wouldn't be down for that at all. Whereas I'm okay with it. And then even then it's like some people won't even coordinate out of character stuff. I will, as long as you're not setting me up.
yeah.
If you're using out of character means to get to my character in character, then that's metagaming to me. But if we're trying to save as one player trying to save another player a bunch of time, and to ensure that we get to have some interaction, I'm okay with that. I'll schedule that kind of thing. But
Yeah, like I mean, I'd schedule if someone wants to do like let's say like a perma story or something. I'd be fine with coordinating that out of character, honestly. I mean, I'd push them to do it more in character, like but if they want to go out a certain way and there's a story building up to it or something, then I can understand that. But like most stuff, yeah, obviously if you're um, setting someone up and you're like, yeah, I just want to meet you in character. It's like, or you're in their comms, or something, and then you go and shoot them or whatever, that obviously that's cool, but yeah.
I like what these guys are saying, Corrupted Smurfs, and I guess it's Vriska, saying that, if you're running around the map for 4 hours and you're bored, you want to have someone to talk to. And it's funny because I agree with that. And especially when I was living in Old Town, we'd get into Old Town chat, right? And I'd be not in Old Town and I would just be running around. But my problem with that is that now I'm listening to all these other people talking. And what I'm not hearing is the guy creeping up behind me with the shovel who's about to knock me out. That's literally like my problem with just chit chatting away all day is that, yeah, it's like I'm not paying attention to the game and I'm going to get jumped or something awful's going to end up happening to me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's Zerka, by the way, not
It's
Vriska.
Zerka. See, I'm gonna never get these guys straight. It's never gonna happen. I did it in game the other day.
Oh
I
no.
referred to Vriska as Zerka. I did. And it's because they've got the coolest names on the server. I'm sorry, it's just true. I'm like a big fan of names with like V and Z. And I really like both of them have a K. That's the thing. They both have K's too, Vriska and Zerka. I'm like,
Yeah.
these names are awesome. I like really like them. So yeah, I do. But apparently I'm not the only one, so I don't feel too bad. I do. I try to get it. I actually started writing them down because I haven't met Zerka yet. I've met Vriska in game.
Yeah, be careful if you meet Zerka. She might just like tie you up and take your eye or something. You gotta watch out for her.
Sorry, Zerka. The best part is I'm not gonna forget it now, so it's all good. I only have to make the mistake once, and then I usually learn from it pretty quick. That's hilarious that I did that though. That is so funny because it literally happened like last week, earlier in the week.
For sure.
I was like, oh well, I meet so many people. I'm so sorry. As a reverend, I'm always talking to people. I probably ought to learn to keep them straight. My goodness. Anyway, so Zerka was saying. Oh my goodness.
The only other thing I could think of with like
it's such a fun show.
Ally chats, what I do for like interactions and stuff as well, if I will definitely pressure people to not use TeamSpeak in game. Obviously, I won't be like, hey, can you deafen yourself in TeamSpeak? You can, if they have a radio on them, you can take that from them and make sure you say that you're like taking their radio, so maybe they get the hint, like, deafen yourself or something. And maybe you can even do like, oh, do you have like an earpiece in or something? I've done that before. I mean, I definitely used to do that where like if I get held up, I'd be like, yo, I'm getting held up, I'm getting held up. But I think the only way I would do that now is like, if for instance, if I see someone in a town and I call that out to my teammates and they push up and then like then I get held up, I deafen. But they are within like the right to go into that town and do whatever because I've already called out that someone's there. But if you get held up out of nowhere and you're just like freaking out or whatever that you're getting held up, I've seen people do it before and it's just like, just go with it, dude. Like, come on. That kind of stuff. That's not as big of a deal to me as like alliance chats and whatnot because I just don't like those at all. But personally, that's kind of what I would roll by.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I've done, I mean, because, look, man, when, remember that we're not the only ones playing the game. So even if we have, our own personal preference, we're not islands. We've got to interact with other people. So what I like to do, because again, if it was up to me, excuse me, if it was up to me, there wouldn't be any out of character chat in that regard. It would all be, kept in character, but I'm just a little bit more of a purist when it comes to roleplay. But being what it is, right? Whenever I end up joining like another group's Discord or something like that, I always try to at least find out what the norm for that group is. Because at least then, it's like I'm a guest, and I'll act accordingly in my guest's house, when I had my own Discord for the Old Town Community Church, I had an in-character chat and an out-of-character chat. The in-character chat was never used, but the idea was that, if somebody wanted to come and leave like a note, or if like, you wanted to kind of do some light role play, like you're hanging out in the garden at the church or whatever, that kind of thing was okay here. But that most of the chat was going to be out of character and, just us getting to know each other kind of thing. But I just try to make sure that at least, I'm following the standard operating procedures for the group in their Discord and whatnot, because I found that you're probably going to have the least troubles that way, because if you go around assuming that everybody's okay with, out of character comments or talking about in-game stuff, then, you end up getting, because it's, I think a lot of it is allowed within the groups, depending on as long as everybody's cool with it. But once people aren't cool with it, if it becomes a problem for them, and then they can report you for it, and then you've created a problem without even realizing it. So that's another reason why I would caution anybody to just make sure that you know what's acceptable and what's not to the people you're associating with.
And on that note, I guess, make sure, like, when I think a good thing to have is, if you're in a group, is like briefing channels. There's any established group, I think, I hope would have them and whatnot, but like people, you can really like get messed up with in character and out of character information. Like you got to make sure everything that uh, is coming in character and not like they heard it from someone who heard it from someone, uh, and it's like they thought it was in character, but that other person, it was actually like metagamed info or whatever. Like you have to be careful with that. Obviously you can't know where everything's coming from, but if you protect yourself up to like a certain point, then you'll be fine. But I see people, I think, have issues with that as well, as like um, differentiating in character and out of character and not knowing where their information is coming from, and like accountability and stuff.
Yeah, in a perfect world, it would be nice if everybody just got it right. That would be so lovely. Just like if I could keep these characters straight. So now I'm even more confused than I was before. By the way, Zerka, I'm confused now because apparently I did meet Zerka, but I thought Zerka corrected me. I think I said, maybe I accidentally said Vriska and I meant to say Zerka, and Zerka was trying to correct me, and then I thought Zerka was overcorrecting me and that it was actually Vriska. I think maybe that's what happened. That's what probably happened, and that's what got me confused. But now I think I'm back. I think I was originally on the right page. I might have said the wrong thing at the wrong time, but now I think I've got it down. I think I know who I'm talking to. Zerka. Yeah. Okay, anyway. It's important to know these things, guys. Come on. Sorry, we're having fun now. Oh my goodness. So, where were we? Oh, yes. Here, hold on. This is a great comment. I like this. Coming from roughly a decade of text RP to RPing in games with VoIP, it was strange since I was only used to very little OOC chat. But I honestly found myself enjoying being able to make proper friends. As a lifelong gamer, somebody who started like 30-something years ago, I actually agree completely. I found this whole thing to be very fascinating when I was contemplating starting the gaming workshop. Because I was thinking about the way gaming has developed over the years. And it did when, because when I started out, we were doing tabletop role-playing. So all of our role-playing was social to begin with. And then it went to video gaming. And then to the storyline, linear story, progressive video games they call role-playing games, which just really aren't. To where, when we got back to role-playing again, and it was all text-based. We were playing in chat rooms and that sort of thing. And so all the people that I was meeting gaming that way, it was all text, and very little of it was OOC. It's funny that you mention all of that. And so now, as you're getting to know people, we're able to talk to people in real time all the time. It's like everything's now voice again. And it's interesting because you do get to know people a little better, I think. Excuse me. So I think that's pretty interesting point there. It's actually weird to me when somebody doesn't have a mic. Obviously in DayZ you have to have a microphone, but and they'll try to text chat. I do it in emergency situations if like my mic died or if I forgot to load up a voice meter or something like that. And nobody can hear me. I'm like, oh crap, hold on, and people are usually pretty cool about it, but
yeah, I think like if I'm by myself and someone's not talking, I'm just gonna shoot them. I'm gonna be honest, like, because Okay, if I'm running around and I have a group and I can like make sure no one else is in the area and get into a decent spot, then if someone has to use text chat in that situation, I'm fine. Because if you think about it, they're actually putting themselves at a disadvantage because they have to take their hand off a mouse to type. Uh,
Yeah,
and
seriously.
they're actually putting themselves at a disadvantage. But if I'm like, I've had some weird run-ins like the past week. Excuse me, the past week with like someone who was using text chat and then just all of a sudden started using their mic, and I was like, you are not
Hmm.
setting yourself up for fun, because there are people who, even if they're in a group, if you have no mic, they will not, like, they will just shoot you, which to me is like
Hmm.
fine. Like, I've had plenty of people who just stare at you and they don't say anything because they're just like, hey, there's a guy in front of me, shoot him, to their buddy in Discord or whatever, like that's fine to not trust people at all like that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. You text chat is really rough. No mic, no life, pretty much.
Yeah, and that was it. I was trying to remember. I was trying to remember what the rhyme was. No mic, no life. It's like red equals dead, man. But I don't know. I don't want to promote that too much. I've actually found it pretty interesting that when you encounter people, that sometimes they're a little different. They come off a little different than their reputation uh, led you to believe. It's one of the things I enjoy so much about playing on Doug too. It's like you never, even when you think you know what you're gonna get, you don't always know what you're gonna get.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't. It's just I think most people have just had bad experiences with people who don't talk, because usually they're just, the other person's just in Discord or TeamSpeak, like, there's someone in front of me, please shoot them or something. They're trying to set you up. So
For real, that is a good point though. I mean, it's like, yeah, if they're not talking to you, they're talking. Who are they talking to? They're talking to somebody.
and it's like, at the end of the day, like, it's 2021, dude. Like, most people have mics. Like, there's obviously gonna be cases where like someone's mic is broken or something, and that's unfortunate. That's why, if I have enough people, if I have a couple extra people around me, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. But like, otherwise, that's how it's gonna go if you're not gonna talk to people.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I also feel the same way about non-English speakers as well. I think that I've mentioned this before, maybe once or twice, but early on, whenever I was getting KOS, it was almost always by somebody who either spoke very broken English or didn't speak English at all, and almost always wore a motorcycle helmet. So I got to the point to where I was ready to KOS anybody in a motorcycle helmet or that didn't speak English. And my in character reasoning for it was, if I can't understand the words you're using, then you're probably infected and you're probably turning right now. And I'm just gonna send you on to the Lord. I think it's kind of
Yeah.
how I was looking at it in character, but it's just like, it's true. I mean, if you come to especially to a role playing server, and you can't communicate with the people that you're playing with, you're gonna communicate one way or another. If you can't use words, you're gonna use bullets. So I mean, it's
Yeah, like, if
it's the way it
that's how it
is.
goes. Um if unfortunately, like, if you can't find um people who know, like, obviously, if you have like a group of people and maybe you have some that are fluent enough in like English or whatnot to speak it, um you'll be fine. But like, that's just how it goes. Like, if you come over and you don't really know how to speak very well, it's people are just gonna not trust you, honestly, because it's like, who knows, they, maybe your intentions are right, but like, you don't know the language. I've had people like that as well, where it's like, they just don't know enough, and they like might say the wrong thing, but they don't mean it that way, and then it's not going to turn out good for them, and then they're going to get turned off from the server because people are just shooting them because they said the wrong thing or something.
Yep. Here we go. If you're coming into an English speaking community, I can only recommend speaking fluent English. I mean, it's like it's right there. It
Oh,
makes perfect
oh
sense.
yeah, like, which is, there's people who have like come
uh,
over from other
yeah.
countries
Yeah.
who have purely learned English from, like, um, uh, whatever, just general culture. I know there's like an artist, a musician who learned English purely through like hip hop and whatnot, and just reading like comics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you can definitely do like it's not actually a bad way to practice, but like yeah, if you
Well,
don't want to,
keep in mind we're talking today about the value of our characters' lives and gear fear, which amazingly enough, or not because it's obvious, are tied together sometimes. Um, yeah, when we're worried about those kind of things, it's like having somebody that you can't effectively communicate with who could just at any time just beat you to death. Kind of, I mean, that's it all makes sense to me. Why, it's like I wouldn't really trust somebody I couldn't communicate with because they might just
yeah,
turn around and demolish me for no reason. I mean, it's just it is what it is. But I do feel bad because it would be nice to be able to play with people. When I first joined Doug, I think there was a Russian guy who wanted Americans or people who spoke English to play with so that he could learn English that way. I thought that
yeah,
was the coolest thing. I totally was down with that. I volunteered. I took him to a different community, one that was more PVE focused. I thought it'd go a little easier. I don't really know how it worked out because I lost touch with him after that, but I thought that was a cool idea.
yeah.
But it is again hard to do in a situation like this.
And
When
if you know two languages, that could benefit you as well. Say something in another language most people aren't gonna understand. you could you could just be like, hey, I'm gonna shoot this guy, and they have no clue what you're saying. That's
see that would
there
be
was
cool.
there was one of the funniest clips I saw was like there was someone who like what a legend, because this person was playing on like 200 something ping. Uh, they were from Japan, and they would speak in Japan, or no, they would speak in sorry, they would speak in Japanese. They would speak in Japan. They would speak in Japanese, and then in like
Yeah.
Discord they would translate it for their friends, and then they'd kind of say like a broken version of what he said to them in
Mm-hmm.
English, like they were translating, and it was like redneck translation. It was super funny. But yeah, what Zerko said. If you got to be able to hold just like a decent enough conversation, you're good.
Definitely. I like what Aiden pointed out, how they had a member of their group that didn't speak English very well, and in just a few months, they were able to understand a lot more. I do, and that's why I said it kind of makes me feel bad a little bit to have that kind of an attitude because, I mean, what if you were somebody who really wanted to learn the language or whatever and wanted to immerse yourself around people that did, and it's like nobody would give you the time of day because there's a communication difference. I mean, again, in real life, I feel like it might be easier to overcome those kinds of barriers in real life as opposed to a video game. But
Well, most
I
people
mean,
like most people are not in you're not in an apocalyptic situation where it's like
yeah.
you just kill you. Um, yeah, that was the guy from Cletus and Ken, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't know his name, but I just saw clips of it and it was really funny. Um, but yeah, like if you just meet someone out in the wild, like if you're coming to a community like Doug where it's pretty much English speaking, and you don't really know any English, but you don't make the effort to like be like, hey, I don't really know this very well, can like someone help me? Because I think most people would actually be down to help you, but like
Hmm.
it, don't expect to be like coming over and RPing with a bunch of people, because people are probably just gonna like not want to deal with you because they can't understand you. So
Yeah.
that's unfortunate. But like Aiden said, you get someone who is willing to like improve on it, then you'll be fine. Like you can pick up very easily from something like Doug. Like I said, there's people who have learned just from watching American TV and stuff. How to speak English fluently
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah. It's actually funny, Zerka. I have one of the things that I did as part of the comedy with the Dread Pirate Boomer is that he has accent, and I was trying to develop like a Caribbean or a like kind of a British kind of Pirates of the Caribbean kind of accent, and failed miserably. Like I'm really bad at it. So I decided to embrace how horrible I was with it and just combine every possible accent that even kind of comes close to it, and then make that boomer's accent. And it's funny because it got me thinking about dialects and all this stuff a lot. And, I even make fun of it when I'm playing, and I make fun of actors and whatnot who have different voices. My favorite one right now is making fun of Kit Harington, who is in Game of Thrones. Of course, Kit Harington has got a Scottish background, so he's acting with a lot of people with very distinct British accents. He has a very distinctly different accent, and yet in the show comes from the same area as everybody else. And it's like I make fun of that stuff a lot, but it's funny because it's true. I mean, even in American, it's like we all have different accents, whether you're talking like Cletus or whether you're talking from like you're from New York or whatever, and it's like it's weird the way that works because we're all speaking the same language. But yeah, it's just depending on where you're at and where you're from and what you're used to hearing. A lot of things can be difficult. I can't even understand my mother-in-law sometimes, and I've lived in the South most of my life. But when she's talking about putting the planter in the window seal, I'm like, what are you talking about? Window seal? There's no seal in the window, man. And the ceiling, it's just she's talking about the window sill. It's just weird. The way people are sometimes.
I feel bad for Zerka because she just has no chance of playing any other character. Her voice is way too recognizable. Like you just dealt the wrong hand there for RP. Like you're stuck to Zerka forever because anytime if you play a new character, people just be like, Zerka, is that you? And you're just gonna have to deal with it.
That's so funny. Who is this Zerka? I'm gonna kill him. It sounds like me.
Yeah.
You be doing that all the time.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad I could do. I'm glad I can do some accents, man. Honestly, because yeah, I mean, it's like my voice would be pretty distinctive too if after a while. And it's funny because I never imagined myself being like a voice actor or anything, but I think it's amusing when people meet my character and then they think that he's a different race or a different background or whatever than I really am, and it blows their mind. That is like really satisfying to me for some reason. I guess it makes sense. It's a performance thing, but that happens kind of often. I mean, I even ran into a group of people in a town the other day, and we were role playing and everything else, and it was like this guy was just like, wait a minute, wait. He's like, look, out of character, man. He's like, we started talking because they were new to the server, and so we started talking, and he was like, and I started talking in my normal voice, and it blew his mind. He was like, dude, he was like, wait a minute. And then he started asking me personal questions, and he was just like, oh my gosh, man, I had no clue. And I was just like, thanks, man.
I'm trying to do like I'm trying
fun.
to change my voice up a lot for my next character as well. I'm practicing. I'm not good at it, but I'm practicing like a very nasally voice.
Yeah.
Like a very annoying voice, because I'm gonna be kind of an annoying person, I think. But yeah, no, it's some people like it's just gonna be hard for them to get past that. But then that goes into even if you try, like even if you have a very distinguishable voice and you try to make it different and it even sounds just a bit different, like no one's gonna care, because if you're trying, like I said, no one cares.
I don't know, Zerka. No, I was just thinking, I would like to think that the majority of our community, like if your character had a different appearance and a different everything and the same voice and was, I would like to think that most people would just roll with it. But now the question though remains is, what if, like, because I've thought about this, okay, what if the Reverend decided to go rob somebody, right? He put on a mask, he changed his outfit and everything else, right? And when I go, it would be the funniest thing ever, probably, because I wouldn't be able to do it in a completely different voice. I would have to do it like the Reverend Alessandro disguising his voice. So it would be...
It's like another layer. You have to change your own voice, and then you have to change the voice you've already made up a bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, man, what a pain would that be too? And I don't know that it would ever be convincing. You know what I mean? Like, who's the Reverend? I don't know the Reverend you talking about. Give me all your money, man. I want all your money, fella. Because I think people would pick that out. They would be like, wait, it sounds like the Reverend. I don't know. But
The only way you could get a like if you were a completely different character and you sound the same, the only way I think people would not like, and people would always be suspicious of you, but the best way to
yeah.
dispel it is to just make it so like the difference is gonna be what you know, because if you're gonna know different things as another character, obviously, especially if you're
Mhm.
starting out new. If you don't know literally anything on a character, then like there's a bit of a difference, you know.
But now that's assuming, of course, that the player is a stout player. Is like is a
Yeah, yeah.
solid player. Which it all comes down to that. It's funny. Like again, we talk about a perfect world, and I think that's a big part of it. Is like if we were all on the same page and all just got it, everything would be just so much easier. But it's never going to work that way. I mean, that's life. We're all different. We all different experiences and all. But it would be really cool.
For
Because then you
sure.
could do stuff like that. Because it would, it's weird. Because like I was afraid of that when I would play like the Dreadpire Boomer and I would slip into Alessandro accent. The people that I had run into actually played it off really well because they actually understood the concept of the Dreadpire Boomer and what I was going for. So when I would make slips like that, it just became a part of the role play and a part of the character, as opposed to being like, oh, he sounds like Alessandro now. But but it's like it's just people roll with the punches, and it's good to have that. And I think people know that I was actually playing a different character. But I don't know, man. It'd be fun because maybe I'll try that sometime. Try to pretend my character is somebody different because there are ways you can do it where it's legal, and there are ways that you can't. Like for instance, like what we're talking about now. If I was just to play the Reverend Alessandro, just put on a different outfit, and then to walk around and talk like this, oh, I'm gonna kick you in the butt, whatever. That's not realistic to my character, and to me, that would be kind of like pretend. That would be playing a different character, not Alessandro. But if I was
Yeah.
talking like Alessandro and I tried to try to change up my voice a little bit, I can't do it right now. But if I did, and I still had that undertone of Alessandro in the voice, I feel like it would be more legal, to
I think
try to pretend to be someone else.
what Circus said is always an interesting question, I guess, is that like how far can you go off of things based like character model and voice? Because there's situations I've been in where I've had people like really go into someone for their voice because they really sounded like someone. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously other things played into that. Like the person, for instance, had a name that was very, very similar to their actual name. So even then, I wouldn't like personally, I wouldn't lay into people's voices that much if they can't change it. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
like Zerka's example, but um, you know, like player model, for instance, this is I mean, I think this is a good example personally. Like, I've thought about it because so before Seymour died, I knew that um, this is obviously out of character, but I'm just giving the example because I think she'd be fine with it. But I knew that Kate, I learned in character that she was most likely a war boy.
Mm.
So if I see a female war boy and I know that there's only a few female character models running around there, like, can I assume that? I've thought about that kind of stuff. Like, how far can you go with that? Like, if you know that there are one or two people in that group around that you have seen at least, like, is it safe for you to assume that without being like, well, like anyone could technically have a female or male character model, you know?
That's rough. I would say that it's reasonable suspicion, at least,
Mm.
that kind of thing. But that's a very good point because yeah, there are only so many. The way people look and whatnot. I kind of feel like the Reverend, for instance. I mean, anybody could pick that character model, and run around at it, and it's really the voice that distinguishes the character. Because he could run around in freshly clothes, he could run around in a PID. If I talk, you know who it is, but that's not always true. And yeah, it is kind of tricky when you're especially using like gender or race or something to identify somebody, and there's only so many, because I think there's like for African Americans, I think there's only three, and
Mm-hmm.
one of them's almost more Indian looking, so it's kind of Indian, so it's kind of like it's hard in that
Yeah.
regard. But that's just the limit of the game. I'd like to think that we as players can look beyond those technical limitations.
Yeah. Well, like,
You know?
I think, I mean, I could answer my own question there. I think I just
Sure.
brought it up as like a rhetorical question, but to
Right. Of
me,
course.
like,
Yeah.
I, if I had gone off before I learned that she, like, there's a very, very good chance that she was a war boy, then
Mm-hmm.
that might have been, a bit more like, a bit suspicious. But like, if I would say, always try to find it for certain, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
just confirm that the person is it. Like, I try to make as little like conclusions, because you always have to think like how far of a leap, especially for your character as well. Because if you're playing an idiot character, you can't, like a legitimately dumb character, you can't make like mental leaps, because sometimes maybe that character literally cannot connect dots. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's where you have to be like, okay, is my character
Fair
smart enough
point.
to understand and put these two and two together here? And like, do you want to use something like a character model and other information that like how many of this person that look like this are in the group, etc. I
Mm-hmm.
think you should always try to just 100% confirm who it is. Um, just if you don't know, even if your character was like some genius or something. I mean, that doesn't excuse you from metagaming, obviously. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Definitely. Well, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. The other day, I ran into some people, and there were three of us with the same character model, and we were all dressed different, right? And I mean, and I could tell everybody apart, and they could tell us apart. I don't want to get too real world. It's kind of amusing in another way, but people say all white people look alike or all black people look alike or whatever. It's kind of funny in that regard because I mean, I play the same character model, and when all three of us were together, we could tell each other apart pretty obviously, right? But if somebody had walked up, because especially because the Alessandro was wearing like freshy clothes, I think if somebody had walked up and none of us were talking, I would not have expected anybody to be like, "You're Alessandro," you know what I mean?
yeah,
But if we were talking, it would be different. So it's just that was kind of amusing to me in that regard. But yeah, I did. I thought about that at the time. I was like, oh wow, I was like, that's neat because we do all look very different. And I look at my character model all the time, and I'm thinking about my character with my voice and all of that stuff. And so, to me, he's very distinct and different. But yeah, when you run into other people with the same model, it's interesting because it's like, wow, you know, I could tell, but would somebody else be able to? Would I be able to tell if I didn't know? Probably not.
yeah. That's where I wish we were able to make our own character models or something, because then that'd be so cool.
Yeah, pulling
Um,
like a Bethesda character creator or something. That would be
yeah,
pretty rad.
that
That would
I
be
mean,
rad.
imagine even just that would change. I think so much. I think that'd be really cool if you could, for instance, change your eye color, um, or do
I think
this,
it's so too.
because that would give you a lot of different options. Because
Mm-hmm.
for things like that, even though I brought up that point, I would probably just not assume it even then. Like, maybe I'll bring it up, um I'm not gonna be 100% sure about it, but like, I'd rather not try to rely on that stuff too much, just because you also do have to take into account the limitations of the game as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I
And
guess
I
that's kind
think
of a part of. Oh, go ahead.
I think people could see that as kind of cheesy, but yeah.
I was thinking about it as kind of being a part of the kind of thing we look for in whitelisted people too. I would expect people who are whitelisted to be able to to be able to let some of these things go, and
Yeah.
know that you can't just assume that one character is another character just because their character model is similar. Um, you know, and then act accordingly. I mean, because it would be so annoying. Could you imagine if you're like walking around with somebody who like on purpose is purposely confusing all these characters who just because they have the same character model? Oh my gosh, man, that would be so annoying. That would be so annoying. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
there's three Zerkas here. I mean, what am I gonna do? It's like, oh my gosh, come on, man. Don't be a jerk. That would be the
Yeah.
don't be a jerk. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh my goodness, guys. It is this has been a really good show.
For
I've really
sure.
enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this. I wish we could come to sometimes I wish we could come to a more of a we've resolved this issue. But it's really not. It's not what the show's about. And it's really not what the discussions are about. And in this type of a game, you know, it's really impossible to resolve the issues, you know. So I do think that what we've concluded though is, of course, that the quality, our value of our characters' lives is very important. It's also innately tied to not only our stories and the concepts we have in mind, but it is actually tied to our gear and does have a bit to do with gear fear. And it's interesting how, to me, how it's all intertwined and interweaved. But it seems like, and especially in all of these discussions, what it comes down to is finding that balance, you know, where you're balancing all these different things. It's like, you know, it reminds me of people who plate spinners, you know, like on the sticks, and they're spinning the plates. You know, you got to constantly go back and forth, you know, from plate to plate to keep it spinning, to keep it all running smoothly. And I kind of feel like that's what we do here as players. And Doug.
Yeah. I mean, if you want an answer to like this, I mean, I think there's an answer. Just get good, you know, like
Yeah,
that's
just get good.
you know.
I mean, it is. I mean, it sucks, but sometimes it is. It's sometimes it's that simple. It's like all you can do. It's just like, you know, I get annoyed, right, when somebody gets KOS'd, a new player gets KOS'd, and they come in the Discord. I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, and they're like, "Hey, I got KOS'd," you know, and everybody's like, "Get good," you know. It's like, dude, that's not helping. But at the same time, it's 100% true. It's all you can do. Just deal with it. Walk it off. Rub some dirt on it, man. Walk it off. I just don't want to say that. I want to be like, "Oh, sweetheart, it's going to be okay. Here, I'll caress your hand. It's going to be okay. You go out there and you get him, slugger." I guess we all have our own way. You'll do better next time, pal. Those are the responses I actually like the most. Well, better luck next time, guy. It's going to be all right, you know. maybe it'll be a little different next time.
Or you can get a good balance, and you get, you know, someone will just say get good, and the other person will be like, you know, whatever, like, you know, just you can get a good balance there.
I kind of hate that you're right about that, because it is how it works too. It is, man, because I'm a little more soft, you know, when it comes to talking to people in Discord. Other people are a little more harsh, and together we bring about a full Doug experience.
Exactly.
Even in the Discord. Gosh, that's hilarious, dude. I love it. I love it. All right, guys. Yeah, so we're gonna wrap this up. I really appreciate Seymour for being here. Oh, excuse me, the letter formerly known as Seymour. You're gonna have to come up with a new name, buddy. We're gonna have to.
Oh, I have a new name. I'm just not telling anyone yet.
Well, when you get to it, well, we'll have the big unveiling. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But no, I really do appreciate you coming, buddy, and we're talking about all this. I appreciate all the help you give me. And
it's fun.
For everybody viewing, man, I really appreciate it. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, go ahead and click subscribe, man. It's super free way to support me, and it makes me feel super special every time my phone. I actually have my notifications on, so whenever it goes off, I get to be like, like it's high school all over again, and people are calling me. I'm popular. No, seriously though, I do appreciate it, and yeah, as long as you guys love this, we'll keep it going. But yeah, I'm exhausted. So you guys have fun, take care, enjoy 1.12. I hope you stocked up on all your sewing kits, because you're gonna need them.
Mind me. I hate it.
We're out of here. I will see you guys tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Boomer Live. And failing that, we'll see you.